era niggas just scream out gang gang. My era niggas outside that gang bang. Old enough to know niggas that made it onto gangland. I don't say that to grandstand, I'm just spitting the facts, man. New rappers too busy just making sing-alongs. My raps will have it going savage like the Viacom. You don't want the smoke, homie, then your weed is strong. Good to see you smoke along to that Cheech and Chong. Me and my team, we on the front line. Steady putting in work, homie, it's always crunch time. Hard times produce me, dog. This ain't a movie, it ain't WWE when I mention the bloodline. Homie, I want mine, that's why I move different. Y'all too laxy daisy, I keep myself disciplined. Repetition on repetition, training is rigorous. Only way to survive the streets that's dangerous and vigorous. Behavior villainous, leave no traces of witnesses. Moment of silence for the taking of all our innocence. Now back to business, somewhat of a practitioner, cause there's no shortcuts in life, no pills that make you limitless. That's ridiculous, far set from reality, like dudes that's licorice. Frame of thought is insanity, causing calamity if you actually watching and listening. Home to catching else from the dudes that started visiting. How you missing it? Losing profits and dividends. The way your boys been cooking, they need to give me a Michelin. The bliss is ignorant, say they don't like to mention them. And say we don't mention the bodies that's in Lake Michigan. Fucking hypocrites, I separate from the fakes. Run with a pride of lines, identify all the stakes. Hubris says they folly and catch on other mistakes. Matter of time before they're just another body that's in the lake. Navigate, these troubled waters won't choose my fate. My vision is too ambition like Alexander the Great. Say there's much on my plate, but I carry my weight. Figuratively and literally, for all those who can relate. I never break, you never get me to fold. You never get me to leave, Chicago is still my home. But I carry my heat, this windy city is cold. Valentine's Day massacre, but was it really Capone? Face blown out of proportion, the different views of contortion. Use best proceed with precaution before you lie dead in a coffin. It's not a threat, that's a promise. Best quit talking your nonsense, your body could end up missing. Got your family claiming we lost them. Can't find them, bad time and he's flatlining. Good riddance, bit a negative to mankind. And I'm like Jack Reacher, the equalizer, John Wick, Jason Bourne, the accountant. Either one, you can take your pick. The damage I could do with my side weapon. John Wick with my P40 Smith & Wesson. Opposition lightweight, so I'm not threatened. I'm just glad about the hate that they keep sending. It's really easy talk that rah-rah on the internet. There's word to Zaza, I heard y'all ain't got your fingers wet. Don't get your cherry pop by the very op. We bustin' real ones, got the heavy guap, you just scary prop. Bunch of these gangsters claim to be hard to the core, but they really not like women that claim to be faithful. But they really thought, act like they down, but when shit goes down, they call the city cops. Same fools think they know a lot, no dilly squad. Tired of all of this fake shit, with fake asses and fake tits. They fake smiles, make fake lips. Picasso looking with their facelift. What I call the good replacement, with the so-called real are the fakest. So the fakest niggas are the greatest. What was common sense no longer makes sense. What was common sense is now rare sense. What was funny then is now flagrant. Living in your thoughts, I don't pay rent. I take my time, you like patience. Then your blood drip on the pavement. With a headshot, got your brainless. After getting hit with that stainless, kill instinct, call me craven.
We going up, shit going down. We lighting them up, you best hit the ground. Shooting them up, one after round. When there's blood in the air, you better not dare to come around town. Father, please forgive me, have mercy on my soul. Fools keep trying to test me and I will never fold. It's the way that Wendy raised me, the city of the gold. Load them up and let them go, load them up and let them go, load them up and let them fly.
What it do, what it do, what it do? It's your boy Odovino Vega. This is the Chop Shop. This is gonna be a quick stream, of course. If you saw the title, you know it's just me giving y'all a quick review of the Odyssey, which I gotta say it did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. Anyone telling you different is a liar. Is a goddamn liar, and I'll stand on that. Truly, this movie was epic. I mean, epic in the same way that Homer's books are an epic, right? You look, reading the tale of the epic, Iliad, the epic Odyssey. Like this movie is epic on that scale. I mean, it's even just epic on the sense of like the movie of the year for sure. I'm sure you've heard that thrown around, and that for sure is probably has to be the truth. Um, Especially considering that this isn't even like a comic book movie or some kind of like, what I'm saying, like uh the obvious, so to speak, right? Like, this is essentially even the projections for what this movie was supposed to do over the weekend was good. They were expecting good numbers, but not as good as what they got. And I think that's just due to the fact that they're not sure if people, as much as there was a star cast, just all around, as much as it's, a great director, I think the caution was in the fact that it's the Odyssey. Is that kind of movie still a tentpole kind of movie that'll bring masses in to go watch? Um, and apparently it was, and apparently it is, and again, rightfully so. I first off, hats off to the marketing team and even the press release team. I think the way this movie rolled out also is a testament to a success. I think credit has to be given where credit is due. Um, there's no way that you can't give credit to that. Again, like I remember weeks leading to this movie coming out, you started getting like, interviews and press releases, the press run and all that stuff, articles, and even those that, the pre-screenings that, that people go watch, with the red carpet and all that, whatever it's called. I kind of, for some reason, it's evading me. And then you kind of got the critics after that. The articles talking a little bit about the movie after that. All that I feel led to this anticipation for people to go watch. I think also promoting the fact that it was entirely shot on IMAX is another factor to its success. As I said last time I went live, I mean, I went to, foolishly like a foolish fool. I forgot. I didn't think about pre-purchasing my tickets. You know what I mean? And so last minute, not like last minute, like I went to the theater and bought my tickets or the day of, but like, maybe a couple days, maybe a week beforehand, me and the wife finally were like, oh, wait, we should go get these tickets, And when I tell you like the theaters were jam packed, like, uh, finding tickets were hard to find. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially if you were trying to get it in IMAX, which obviously we were. Obviously, we definitely looked to find like the closest IMAX 70 millimeter, theater in our area. Unfortunately, there's only two close to us. And when I say close to us, not really that close to us. They're like one's like in the way far south suburbs. Like, I mean, when I say suburbs, it's not even suburbs. It's like another like a whole ass just like town, almost going all the way down to Springfield kind of thing. You know what I mean? Kind of. I mean, I'm exaggerating there, but that's how far Southport is. And then the other one's like way west, like maybe an hour and a half away from us if we wanted to catch that, which we were willing to drive west for sure. But when I tell you that theater every day is sold out, I mean, from its Thursday release all the way even up till this Saturday coming up, Sunday coming up, sold out. That's what's going on with this movie over there. And then like every theater in IMAX, around the area that we could find, again, sold out, or at the very least, you're only gonna get like the 2 front row seats. You know what I'm saying? That's how it was looking then. We managed to find one that still had at least a 4th row available, and we're like, all right, we're willing to do that. So we did that, and again, I'll even say this: if there's anybody who's just like focused on IMAX and you've starved yourself of watching this movie, I mean, don't get me wrong. Visually, it's something to behold. But like, that's not the only thing that's holding this movie together. And I think that's important to state because there is some slander out there right now. There is some slander, but we won't get to that. I want to just focus on some positives here. Again, visually, for sure, it's a masterpiece. It's a must-see. It's a masterpiece. And again, if you're watching it in IMAX, you'd understand. And I'm sure those who watched it in the 70 millimeter can attest to that. This is some movie that I'm definitely going to go watch again, especially in that 70 millimeter viewing. But if somebody told me that they were willing to pay for my ticket to just watch it standard, I would, because the story itself is that great. The dialogue, the dialogue and the story are very understandable, very comprehensible, easy to follow. Some have used that to critique this movie, which I just think is kind of just dumb, to have that as a critique. Um, I, you know, I get sometimes don't get me wrong. I like a good movie that has like, has me thinking. I have to unravel or, maybe sometimes, I like even like certain, you know, uh, movies that have just good quotes, whether it's like, elegantly said or something like that, like the nuances of conversation. Like, yeah, that's all good in a movie and in its proper story. And this could be that story too. It could. It's not to say that they couldn't have done that. And I probably maybe I would have loved it even more, maybe. But to use that as like something that you wouldn't like about the movie, it's kind of just missing the point. It's missing the point with what I think Nolan would not what I think. I think Nolan's even on record saying this to what he was trying to achieve. Um, and that's how can he bring this old time, this epic story that, listen, if we're going to be honest, I don't think anybody's reading these kind of books anymore. Just the very few that actually still read books, and then probably even maybe a little bit more than that, maybe those that still read or hear audiobooks. You know what I'm saying? But if we're going to be honest, like I still know a lot of people that don't know much about the Iliad or people that don't know much about the Odyssey. I knew people that didn't even know what the Odyssey was about. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even know that Troy, when I talked to them about you remember that movie Troy, they didn't even know that was based on Homer's Iliad. They think it's just a moment in time in history. That's what people think. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what some people thought, is that Troy was a moment in history. You know what I'm saying? And I don't blame them. I get it. And rightfully so. Those stories do take place in a time in which it existed, the same way comic books and movies of our time do. Right? They exist within a time frame of its existence. Some do. Not saying all, but some do. Right? That being said, it's again to me the dialogue being what it was, even the lack of accents, right? Like this idea that whatever. Again, I'm gonna get into what the slander is. Let me just say what I want to say first, right? It's again the dialogue and the story very understandable, very comprehensible, easy to follow. The score makes you feel the emotions of what you're supposed to feel just as much as I feel as the acting did. Which again, some people awkwardly slandered the acting. I don't know. I think they just wanted above and beyond I think they had expectations that weren't meant for them. And I think upon that, they have their critiques on why they think this movie is bad. But you take those expectations away, and I think you leave with feeling like this is a great movie, because again, if you're trying to, is it accurate to its source material? Is it accurate to whatever? If you have all these things that you're concerned with and presuppositions and again, expectations that you have of it, then sure, I can see why you'd be disappointed. But again, we'll get there. The visuals and the sounds, I would say, make you feel like you're there. Like it really was almost like an immersive feeling without having the 3D movie experience or the 4D movie experience. You still feel like you're there, and I don't know if that's the IMAX capture. Again, I feel like that's heavily due to that. The sounds, the score. There's moments in the movie that again you feel like you're there with them. Whether it's the moments that they're in the horse, the moments that they're on the ship, passing, the sirens. Again, I'm not going to give too much details. Anyone who knows the story of the Odyssey should know what to expect in this movie. I say that to say, though, that obviously not everything in the Odyssey is in this movie. That's kind of a goofy notion to have, considering how big and how long, how many pages the Odyssey is. To think that you can get it all in one movie, kind of crazy. I mean, again, no movie I think has ever succeeded in that. No, not even series that have more time to elaborate stories has even achieved that, right? When you're talking about Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter movies, none of them really are able to fit everything in the movie. So it's to expect here and expect otherwise. And even though the movie's 3 hours, but still. But that being said, it still gets a good portion of being able to tell the story that he wanted to tell here in the fashion that he did too, because it's also in his own linear understand. Not even I don't want to say his linear understanding, but the linear understanding he wanted the audience to have of the journey of Odysseus in the Odyssey. And I would hope and feel that when people watch this movie, they think to themselves, "Oh man, what really did happen? What is in the Odyssey?" And they go back and read the poems and all that. Homer's epics. You could only hope that that's what the takeaway is, other than just feeling that this movie is exactly just the 100% accuracy of what the story is. But it isn't far off either, right? Again, it was really an immersive experience. Now, again, let me just dive into, I guess, some of the things being said, right? Is it accurate to the source material? No, it is not, right? Is it accurate to history? I feel like that's kind of a dumb notion to have here. This is a mythology, right? It isn't necessarily a history lesson. So this idea that it's like supposed to be, according to history, it's kind of it's lying, right? It's a lie. It's this isn't really a historical context. Now it has moments of history in it for sure, right? So one can take that and say, there are things I guess you can dive into that, right? Like, but I feel even on that note, right? If we're gonna take those kind of things about about the historical context within the framework of the Odyssey, I feel some things actually could have been accurate, could be accurate. And again, who really knows is my whole point. Who really knows what's historically accurate in this movie and not, right? That being said, who even really knows what's accurate inside the books, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? 100 to it's 100, you know what I'm saying? And obviously a lot of it isn't accurate because a lot of it's mythological. It's fantasy. It's fiction is more than it is fact, right? Now there are some fact again. There are some things that you pin the timeline it exists within. Whether it is again like the Greece going over with Troy and the reason whatever the reasons why and all that stuff, right? Loosely, right? Obviously, kings and warriors that existed in that time, right? All these things are pretty much kind of true, but at the same time, if we're honest, some of it isn't, right? Like, if we're like if we're gonna be honest here, right? Like, obviously, the so-called gods and the demigods that existed in this time in that book, and how they came to exist. You know what I mean? Like, all right, so this is why it's like to hang up this argument of like, is it accurate to history? It's kind of goofy, right? But let's just stick to some of the simple things, right? Like, I would say, because again, comic books even do this, right? Like, there's movies do this, right? Like, okay, like, okay, for instance, like comic books, you have Spider-Man and Daredevil, whatever, like all these characters that are out of New York, right? So it places them in a certain place that does exist in real life, and then according to what's in that city in that moment of time, whatever, it kind of tells you the time period of which the story is taking place, right? Stories can do that, even if it's fictional, is my whole point, right? You have comics with Superman fighting Mike Tyson, right? Or no, not Mike Tyson, sorry. Muhammad Ali, again, puts him in a time and place, right? So still a fictional story. You can look at movies, do the same thing, comic book movies, for instance, right? Again, BVS, Batman vs. Superman, right? It places people that we know in real life in the movie, right? Like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Jon Stewart, talking about Superman. Does Superman really exist? No, these are fictional characters. You get what I'm saying? Like, so in a sense, I feel like you're looking at the same thing when you're looking at the Iliad or the Odyssey. It's a lot of it's mythological, but it's putting you in a time and place that did exist with certain events that did occur and exist, right? Or did happen, right? A lot of movies do that, at my whole point, right? um, movies and stories for that matter. That being said, again, I feel this movie has a little bit of both things that maybe aren't accurate, right, and some things that you can say could actually be accurate, right? Okay, so for instance, like I said, the way they speak in this movie, it's not they're not speaking Greek. I'll tell you that much. I think you only hear Greek once in this movie. There's only one time you actually hear somebody speaking Greek in this movie, and I think it's the only Greek person of Greek lineage to exist in this movie. Um, so that kind of says something, in itself. Um, so I don't think, I don't think, again, that obviously to me that doesn't matter. I don't want this to be too long, so I'm trying to keep this short. But again, that I'm not, that part I can. All right, sure enough, they didn't speak Greek. If we I don't know anybody who expected them to speak Greek, but then there's this idea, but if they didn't speak Greek, they should have spoken something of the manner, kind of like the movie Troy, where they had these accents, Achilles, things like that. And it's like, but that necessarily isn't Greek either, right? And if the argument is, yeah, but it's more true to the I don't know, essence of a theater, and the but you get what I'm saying? Like, now you're just lost in what you were actually looking for in the first place. So I'm not even sure that's important. And like I said, I feel the fact that he went with just them speaking normal English, right, is what allows this story to be comprehensible and understandable. And even in the fashion of, I've heard someone, I guess, like I said, critiquing the fact that it felt like, the narration is self-explanatory, right? So like you're not, what's being said is what's being seen, so to speak. But it's like, even that was kind of a goofy criticism, because it's like, well, he's telling this. If you watch the movie, he's the story's being told. It's one of those. Sorry, it's one of those movies that go back and forth, right, with time, but it's very much still the Odyssey. But the Odyssey is kicked off by the events of the Iliad, which is the war of Troy, the Trojan War, right? So again, I said earlier, like, you can't. No, I don't think I said this. It was probably somebody I was talking. Anyways, the whole point is you can't. I'll get to that point anyways. All that to say that, was the movie accurate to the source material? No, but there are still things that exist in the movie that are, I guess you could say, somewhat accurate still, right, to the source material as far as the story is concerned. Even though he for sure took the liberties of doing his own spin on things, right? Obviously, the Calypso thing, the Xerxes thing. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you know, right? Like, well, again, I do want to get more into like a deeper discussion about this movie with spoilers and all that. I don't want to talk too much about it because I want you to see it for yourselves. If you haven't seen it, just go watch this movie, right? But again, I also want to address whatever negative things you may have heard about it, and kind of just put that to an end. So again, that is inaccurate. Is the historical accounts of this movie story accurate? Again, that's hard to say. People were obviously complaining about the casting of all these different races, right? Like race swapping and stuff like that, because it's supposed to be about the Greeks. It's a movie that takes place in Greek, in that geographical place on Earth. It's almost like people think that because airplanes didn't exist back then, that people of all different parts of the earth didn't travel. It's very much known that people traveled, especially within the Mesopotamian region, whether that's from North Africa all the way to like, Turkey and Greece and Israel and whatever, all these that whole region, you know what I'm saying? That whole region that exists, that Mesopotamian region, people traveled. So this idea that they were just all white people, like that's crazy to think that. This idea that like Greeks were only like that, you might be wrong about that, especially when you're talking about soldiers, enlisting of soldiers. right? So the idea that there was, in this movie, you got soldiers of all different types of like colors and stuff, whatever, and race, like even down to again, there's even accounts of people from the Far East traveling to the Middle East and the Mesopotamian region. So like the fact that there wasn't like that could have happened. I'm just saying it could have happened technically. Technically, it could have happened, right? But I'm not really here to defend that. I just again, it's if we're gonna entertain that, it's just like, well, historically speaking, people from all over the world were still traveling, especially on that side of the world. With all its recorded history. So it's like what I'm saying isn't even like made up. You can look at that. Heck, even if you read the Bible gives you insight on that, right? So, again, it could very much be that Odysseus' soldiers were a mixed breed of men, and it's again, because it's only like it's not like there was many. That's why I felt like it's still kind of believable. It was like there was one Chinese guy, there was one of this, one of that, and that's kind of believable because it's like, well, yeah, that could happen. I generally think that could have happened. But again, can anybody say otherwise? No, that's the point. Like that's the main point there. It's like you can't even say otherwise if it was true or not. So again, anybody who's like hung up on that and think that that's the reason, they did a poor job, like that's not a poor job. And in fact, like again, I think in the same way, you kind of take liberties to tell your story, whether it's even again comic book movies that are drawing, because again, the Iliad and the Odyssey are fictional stories, right? Like they're mythologies. They're not everything in it is real. Certain obviously things were real, but not everything was real, right? Again, people that did exist in that movie are technically real, right? Agamemnon is the known ruler, right? So, like again, known cities, right? Sparta, it's like Greece, right? All that real, right? But not everything in the story is real. And again, comics do the same, all these heroes out of New York City, whatever. Okay. Anyways, I don't want to stick into the same point, but all that to say that again, that argument about whether it's accurate to history or not, and that's what makes the movie bad, and it's also a dishonest argument. I'll say that, right? Because no movie regarding Troy, Greece, Greek mythology, ancient Rome, whether historical or mythological, no movie up to this point has been accurate. No movie has been 100% accurate. Let's just say that, right? Every movie has had its own discrepancies, inaccuracies, interpretation for that matter, right? Troy, one of the most beloved movies of all time, right, is probably the furthest one from being accurate to the source material because it's its own interpretation with its own viewpoint on what they wanted to highlight, right? They wanted to focus more on what was historically true, right, and what they believed to be historically true, right, contrary to what's actually in the book, right? In the book, you have the Iliad, for those who know, right? It's the gods that essentially are really conspiring here, that to why this war really actually started, right? More than it is Helen or anything like that, or Paris for that matter, right? But nonetheless, all that to say that in the movie, it's not about the golden apple. It's not about Athena or Aphrodite or Hera mad with each other. It's not about Zeus, doing what he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's none of that. It's just about men going, with their beliefs in the gods, but no gods are involved. No golden apple. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like they took liberties, creative liberties of their own, and said, how can the story actually be most realistic to us? And there's nothing wrong with that, because again, when you even reading the story, and even probably the closest one series wise, and still even that is still not completely accurate. It's like the Troy the Fallen City series on Netflix, but even that's not 100% accurate. But it still takes liberties, again, creative liberties, to give their own interpretation of things. Is my whole point, right? And that's so all that to say, like if I go back, Troy probably the most inaccurate to the actual Iliad. The same people that I know are complaining about this movie, I've seen praise movies like Troy, right? And that's the most inaccurate to the source material. Probably accurate to history, to historical accounts, but furthest from like the source material. So again, it's like this weird, hypocrisy and dishonesty when they're critiquing that part of the film. Um, and I feel another part that a lot of people are getting wrong is that they're mistakenly taking or using the Iliad as a point of reference um, for the inaccuracies in the characters or things that are happening in this movie, right? And that's just goofy because again, the movie, the movie is going. It's based off the very book the title's named after, the Odyssey, and yet I keep seeing people refer to the Iliad, characters of the Iliad, and how they're portrayed in the Iliad to what they don't like about what they're seeing in this movie called the Odyssey, right? And very rarely using the Odyssey as the reference point to what they're judging here. So I find that part funny here. And again, like I said, from someone who's pretty knowledgeable in the Iliad, it's been a while, but I'm not, it's not like I forgot everything. I pretty well remember certain things from the Iliad and things from the Odyssey. Again, yes, Nolan for sure took creative liberties to make some changes, but it's to serve the story. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to get too deep into it because I don't want to be on too long. I actually got to go soon, so let me see if I can wrap this up pretty quickly. But like I said, it's just I feel like it's disingenuous. You know what I'm saying? Like you're talking about the Iliad when the movie's the Odyssey, right? Now, it's not to say that again that the movie The Odyssey is accurate. Like I said, he takes creative liberties to make some switches and tweak some things. But that being said, it still very much follows the story of the Odyssey. So it's not far from what the book is. It definitely, I would say, stays within the framework of which the movie is portraying, of the book that it's portraying. And it's clear that he for sure, from just what I know from the books and even certain interpretations of those books that I've come across, it's clear that he for sure pulled from that, as well as taking the liberty to give his own interpretation of the story, so to speak, and what you get in the movie. And I don't think that hurts the movie. I think it actually makes the movie palatable. Because if not, because I think this again, I say this to say that you're talking about him having to take the epic of the Odyssey, which is broken down into it's broken down into different I guess books within itself, right? Like episodes, so to speak, whatever, like, and to crunch that into 3 hours, it's just impossible. And I think he did the best he could to do that while still getting to the end with the way he told the story. And I think he accomplished that, in my opinion. I think that was accomplished. He was able to do that. Now, can we make the argument that, man, and in another world, in another time, or maybe in the future or near future, hopefully, stories like the Iliad and the Odyssey maybe become a series, which I think that's what they were trying to do with Troy the Fallen City. Although, again, I still don't even really like what they did with that, because, again, my thing is, like, if you're gonna go that, like, trying to go that close to the source, then just do the source material. If you have the liberty to just do that, you don't have to go out of your way to change things there. That show, it was like a love-hate thing, because, like I said, they're the only ones who have ever attempted to do that, involving all the gods and all that. Not to say that this movie doesn't do that, but they still do it in a way that it's up for interpretation. It's very Nolan-esque, is what I'll say, right? Like, so it's for people to be surprised, right? It's kind of goofy, because it's like, what movie of Nolan's have you not left thinking to yourself, like, was it this or was it that? And I feel like this movie accomplishes that. Like, you don't really know if the gods are real or not in this movie, and I've seen the argument made, well, if the, because even Xerxes' powers in this movie are a bit strange, so I don't know, but, like, I say that to say that there's room to even think to yourself that this movie is more even science based than it is mythological based, magical based, right? Like you can even make that argument. Is my whole point. Like there's a lot going on in this movie that again I plan on going to watch again, and I'll probably do a better job of taking more notes. I really went in this first watch to just enjoy the movie. Um, and like I said, is this a perfect movie? No, it's not. You know, I probably I could probably rate it a 9 out of 10. I mean, I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but then that would me being dishonest because there are things that do kind of take you out of the movie a little bit. Nothing too crazy in my opinion. Again, not none of the not well. The only one that probably rang true somewhat because it's not really true what was said about it. But again, I have no problem with the race swapping of characters. I think even Lupita's Helen. I will say I was even after watching the movie, I was still kind of like, why her if she's only getting because initially my thing was, look, I'll be honest. In my opinion, I don't think she's like jaw dropping, gorgeous and beautiful. I think she's pretty. I think she's a pretty woman for sure. But I don't. I personally don't find her to be like eye candy for that matter. I guess right. What we would consider eye candy because again, that's what Helen is technically supposed to be, right? Um. So I just felt like, well, it's not even like. But in my mind, I convinced myself maybe it's because she can act. So maybe you want a good actress. Lupita is a good actress, and she's pretty. So maybe that'll do it. But like she didn't really get that much screen time for me to feel like it was even necessary to have someone that can just give a dramatizing performance. Because I don't even feel like the lines she had or like were that necessarily compelling. Like if it drove that kind of story. So I don't know. I was thrown off by that, or not thrown off, but I was kind of like it left me curious. Like, and I just like, why would you do this? But I guess if I'm gonna put after putting thought into it, I just have to assume it's because I don't think I think he was trying to kind of somewhat do what Troy did, but in a more just honest way, in the sense of like Helen was never really the reason why the war happened. And again, you don't get much of that being told in the story because this isn't really Troy. This isn't really the Iliad, is my whole point. You're getting bits of it, but this isn't it, right? This is afterwards. So it's almost like it's crazy because it's like that would probably, if it was the Iliad, it would probably offer more insight into the choice, but it's not that, right? But there's moments within this movie that that what he's trying to say is that the war was Agamemnon's war, or Greece's war and his brother's war, not just Agamemnon's, but to control the trade, whatever. Like again, historical context. But even those who've interpreted the Iliad know this to be a thing, right? Like whatever. So, um, so I feel like maybe that's it. But again, it wasn't that big of a deal breaker for me. Like it's like, all right, well, again, hey, she's still a good actress and she delivered on what she needed to deliver, but it wasn't even much, I guess, for me to again to justify why I would have chosen her, I guess. But hey, it's Nolan, and maybe to him, she is beautiful. Again, to each their own, right? Like what again, I know we all have different preferences, so hey, I'm sure she is someone's like gorgeous cup of tea, just not mine. But she is pretty. I will say that. Like I'm not saying she's ugly because she's pretty. She's beautiful. She is a beautiful woman. I'm just not sure she's at the level of what Helen is proposed to be in the Iliad. But again, this isn't the Iliad. That's why you can kind of excuse it. And actually, there's something in the movie that kind of even has you like, yeah, you don't need her to be. So, although then there's something else that kind of like throws it off. And I'm sure you've heard spoilers also, but I just won't be the one to do it. All right. The only thing other than that is for sure the Elliot Page casting, because again, it's the reality is she very much still has that voice of a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you can't even pretend to not hear it, and it's like they're trying hard to deliver you a man voice, and it sounds something like like it's they put more rasp and bass trying to put the bass behind their voice. and it sounds more like she somehow got like lung cancer or something. And that's probably the only part that threw me off. I'm like, oh man, like it's you. But the good part about it is that you know, is you don't even get much of that either. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like anybody trying to even say that that's the part that they hate, that it's like, even for someone who, yes, when I heard it, and even like my wife, we were like, man, like it's kind of throws it off a bit because like you can tell it's not a man, right? But even that doesn't change me thinking that this movie sucks and it's not worth watching. Now, maybe there's some, I don't know, cultural war thing to be said there, but I feel like that's reading too much into it. Again, for what the movie really is and how well it was done, um, I feel it's on the money. I feel it's worth the watch. Uh, if you can't find IMAX, even watching is standard. The story is worth watching. I heard others say that they felt that there was no emotional connections in this movie. Again, I feel like that's if you are already having a hard time watching the movie. Um, I feel there are moments that are emotional with uh, where it's like less is more, right? I've heard the complaints that there wasn't enough for this or enough for that, and it's like sometimes less is more. And again, when you're trying to tell this whole story, it's hard to really fit everything in. Now, what I would hope is that someday we find out that there's like a director's cut that's actually like 4 hours long or something, and you get more. That would be a treat, but that's not really Nolan's style. But that would be nice. But anyways, less is more, and I think that there are moments that are emotionally driven, even if there wasn't much to. Because I feel like what is given, if you're just allowing yourself to follow the story, you feel what's supposed to be felt, between the relationship between Penelope and Odysseus, Odysseus and his son, and Odysseus and his dog, and his right hand, like, all that, like the relationships that are built. Like there is something there to be had that has you feeling a certain type of way. Hell, I even say this, even the role that's given to, and I'll even nip this in the butt. Elliot is not Achilles, and I'm for sure glad that wasn't the case, because that would have just been weird. But the character that was given to Elliot, even like even their part, as much as like it was like again, it was hard to follow because of the voice. Even again, I'm still able to like move past it and still like, all right, let me just stick to the story being told here. And even the part of that character and what it plays in the story arc, even that is felt and appreciated when you get there. Again, I'm not trying to get into spoiler territory, but I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. I'm already a lot further into it than I want it to be. That being said, guys, again, go watch this movie if you haven't watched it. It is worth the watch. I am going to definitely see it again. I might see this 3 times in the theater. We'll yet to see, but again, it's a must watch, guys. And whatever you're hearing about the negative, like again, if it's a critique, fair enough. But if they're trying to convince you it's a reason not to watch the movie, they're lying. Or that it's a bad movie, also lie. This movie is really great. It is really great. Not just good, not just like okay for what it was, not just like it's go watch it because it's a moment in time and a moment in history. Like, no, it's a good, great, epic movie. You know what I'm saying? Worth the watch. Visually stunning. Again, the dialogue easy to follow, understandable, palatable, comprehensible. Sorry. It's the score very much brings you in, has you engaged. The sound, everything. Like it's an immersive movie without the 3D or 4D experience. 100%. So go watch the movie. That's my non-spoiler review of the Odyssey. Spoiler 1 coming soon, for sure. I can promise you that. But for now, that's it, guys. Again, go watch this movie. Much love. Peace out. God bless. We out.
New era niggas just scream out gang gang. My era niggas outside that gangbang. Old enough to know niggas that made it onto gangland. I don't say that to grandstand, I'm just spitting the facts, man. New rappers too busy just making sing-alongs. My raps will have it going savage like the Viacom. You don't want the smoke, homie, then your weed is strong. Good to see you smoke along to that Cheech and Chong. Me and my team, we on the front line. Steady putting in work, homie, it's always crunch time. Hard times produce me, dog. This ain't a movie, it ain't WWE when I mention the bloodline. Homie, I want mine, that's why I move different. Y'all too laxy daisy, I keep myself disciplined. Repetition on repetition, training is rigorous. Only way to survive the streets that's dangerous and vigorous. Behavior villainous, leave no traces of witnesses. Moment of silence for the taking of all our innocence. Now back to business, somewhat of a practitioner, cause there's no shortcuts in life, no pills that make you limitless. That's ridiculous, far set from reality, like juice that's licorice. Frame of thought is insanity, causing calamity if you actually watching and listening. Home team catching L's from the dudes that started visiting. How you missing it? Losing profits and dividends. The way your boys been cooking, they need to give me a Michelin. The bliss is ignorance, say they don't like to mention them. They say we don't mention the bodies that's in Lake Michigan. Fucking hypocrites, I separate from the fakes. Run with a pride of lines, identify all the stakes. Hubris as they folly, I'm catching other mistakes. Matter of time before they're just another body that's in the lake. Navigate, these troubled waters won't choose my fate. My vision is too ambition like Alexander the Great. Say there's much on my plate, but I carry my weight. Figuratively and literally, for all those who can relate. I never break, you never get me to fold. You never get me to leave, Chicago is still my home. But I carry my heat, this windy city is cold. Valentine's Day massacre, but was it really Capone? Face blown out of proportion, the different views of contortion. Use best proceed with precaution before you lie dead in a coffin. It's not a threat, that's a promise. Best quit talking your nonsense, your body could end up missing. Got your family claiming we lost them. Can't find them, bad time and he's flatlining. Good riddance, bitter negative to mankind. And I'm like Jack Reacher, the equalizer, John Wick, Jason Bourne of the accountant. Either one, you can take your pick. The damage I could do with my side weapon. John Wick with my P40 Smith & Wesson. Opposition lightweight, so I'm not threatened. I'm just glad about the hate that they keep sending. It's really easy talk that rah-rah on the internet. There's words to Zaza, I heard y'all ain't got your fingers wet. Don't get your cherry pop by that very op. We bust the real ones, got the heavy guap, you just carry prop. Bunch of these gangsters claim to be hard to the core, but they really not like women that claim to be faithful. But they really thought, act like they down, but when shit goes down, they call the city cops. Same fools think they know a lot, no dilly squad. Tired of all of this fake shit, with fake asses and fake tits. They fake smiles, but fake lips. Picasso looking with their facelift. What I call the good replacement, with the so-called real are the fakest. So the fakest niggas are the greatest. What was common sense no longer makes sense. What was common sense is now rare sense. What was funny then is now flagrant. Living in your thoughts, I don't pay rent. I take my time, you like patience. Then your blood drip on the pavement. With a headshot, got you brainless. After getting hit with that stainless, kill instinct, call me craven.